I'd like to call this public hearing to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Gahn? Mr. Wexler?
Here.
The purpose of said public hearing is to hear testimony and discuss the following: file of the Council Number 135, 2017, an ordinance approving the transfer of a restaurant liquor license owned by CBTB LLC, doing business as Corner Bistro, currently in safekeeping with the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, formerly used at 7678 South Main Street, Carbondale, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, 18407, for use at 429 North Main Avenue, Scranton, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, 18504, as required by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board.
There was a sign-in sheet outside for this meeting. No one signed in. It appears that no one else is here to make a comment, so I adjourn this public hearing. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Gahn? Mr. Wexler?
Here. Mr. Gahan is absent tonight due to an unexpected surgery that he had this week.
I would like to make a motion to take from the table file of the council number 120, 2017.
Second.
On the question, this legislation pertains to the deed conveying title from RSM Properties to the city, the property located at 248 to 246 Wyoming Avenue. This ordinance will be placed in seventh order for a final vote. Anyone who wishes to speak on this particular piece of legislation may do so during fourth order citizens' participation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved. Dispense with reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, Tax Assessor's Report for hearing date held December 6, 2017.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3B, Single Tax Office City Funds Distributed Comparison Report, 2017-2016, year-to-date November 30, 2017.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3C, Streetlight Petition Approval for installation in the 1800 block, Cusick Avenue.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3D, Streetlight Petition Approval for installation in the 2200 block, Kelly Avenue.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time? Next Thursday, December 14th, is expected to be council's last meeting of 2017. As has been past practice for council to recess once the budget has been passed, this year we continue with the meetings to pass all the taxing legislation and other important pieces for the operation of the city. City Council will meet again on January 1st, unless a special meeting would be necessary before that date. Also this evening, an executive session was held regarding a matter of litigation.
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Norma Jeffries.
Norma Jeffries, Scranton resident, and like I said before, I've been back in town about 2 years, 2.5 years, and certain things, you know, it's easy to complain about things, but I only complain so much before I have to pick up the phone and do something, or try to do something. So one of my things tonight is about the streets condition. And the street condition in the hill section of Scranton. It seems that there's digging and more digging and more digging that continues to go on. And it usually only takes me 5 minutes to get to my part-time job, which is on Jefferson Avenue, so it doesn't take me that long to get there, and I can usually just zip down Gibson Street. But lately, it's taken me more and longer. Now, longer and longer is like maybe 2 more minutes, but it's just the idea that when you turn up a street, and then there's the road closure. You go down another way, and it's a road closure. So the thing that really got me the other day was I wound up on Olive Street. Now, I don't know if you know what Olive Street is over there. I don't drive it because it's cobblestones, and if it's any kind of dampness, it's going to be slippery. So I said, nah, not going that way. So I wound up on Mulberry Street. Well, you know what Mulberry Street is like at 8:30 in the morning. So I thought, I got to call somebody. So I called the UGI, was my first call, and what they told me was, they were very nice, and they told me that they give a report to the municipalities of the work that they're going to be doing, and that it should be shared with us. I said, oh, okay. So then I called American Water and asked about information. And the lady, she put me through like a deposition, of everything that she was writing down of what I was saying, where I lived, what streets was I talking about. And basically I was talking about Prescott Avenue. No, I don't do Olive Street. Prescott and Gibson and Webster, all of those streets. So she was taking all this down. So in any case, she told me, she said, well, you probably won't get a call back or anything for 72 hours. I said, okay. So I put my cell phone on charge and I went about my day. And then I came back and my cell phone, I missed a call. And it was from Tony, who was from the American Water, and he left a very detailed message about the conditions of this street in the Hill section. And he told me that the work on Pine Street is complete, and that the base work is being done, and the paving will be done in the spring. With the base work being completed there on Pine Street, that it'll give and make it capable for the plows to plow the snow in the winter. He also left the message that the work continues on Gibson, Prescott, and Webster to at least January or February. And the workers do change spots. They don't work in the same spot all the time, he said, that they go back and forth on the streets. So he left a message, he left me his phone number, told me if I had any other questions to please call him, which I did. I returned the call to American Water and to this gentleman, but it went into his voicemail. So basically, I wanted to ask him, I had questions then, why is it taking so long, especially on Prescott Avenue? I don't live on Prescott, but I have family that lives there, and I'm there every day. Not every day, but most of the days. So I went back to what UGI had said, that it was on the city website. So I went to the city website to see if there's any information out there. So I checked under the city departments, the development and proposals, events, and links, and I did not find anything. So I don't know where it goes once they give it to whoever they give it to. So my only question I have, do you know about this report? And is it something that can be shared with the public so that we can know? And like I said, I'm not a complainer, but if something is annoying me, I'm not going to complain to someone else. I'm going to see what I can do to find out what the situation is and how we can make it go further. So they tell me that UGI, that they give detailed plans of the work on the city streets, and I'm just looking to see where that is tonight.
They do give detailed plans. They go through the pave cut inspector.
The who inspector?
The pave cut inspector. He receives a copy of all the plans from UGI, the water company, and from the sewer authority. Now they're combined. So they go through Mr. Hazuri. Then they go through. They're shared with DPW and the city engineers. They're not posted as far as I know. They're not posted on the city's website at all.
Yeah, I didn't see anything, at all.
But they do coordinate as best they can with the utility projects and our paving. But, and I've dealt with them as well, but sometimes the emergency repairs come up, or there's reports of different leaks and things like that, so that kind of changes their plan. So that's kind of one of the reasons why they're in one place and then you don't see them till the next day, so they kind of move around. And another problem is that as they do this work, once the asphalt plants close for the winter, they really can't do any paving after that. So you're really stuck with the coal patch through the winter.
Well,
And as long as it's warm, they're going to continue to do the pipe work.
Okay.
and I talked about this before, I think we need to revisit the pave cut ordinance again, put some controls in there, make sure that there's a spreadsheet for everybody to see, so we know exactly when the work is being done, and where, and how long it's going to take. I think we need to talk to the utility companies about doing it differently, because what they're doing is doing all the mains first, going all over the city, then coming back and doing the laterals, and by the time they're done with the laterals going to people's houses, it's the winter time.
Yeah.
And then we have to drive over these war zone type streets for 4 or 5 months until the springtime comes, and that's unacceptable. So I think it's just a matter of better coordination, a better policy that the city has to have. So I think it's time. We sat down with them, I think it was last year, or the year before.
Yeah,
With the city engineer and the pave cut inspector, and I think it's time to sit down again and really take a hard look at the ordinance and see if we can tighten it up.
Okay.
Yeah, there is after the first of the year, when council reorganizes, all council members have been invited to go back to Pennsylvania American Water to take a look at the proposed projects for the spring, so everyone on council can get a good idea on exactly what's happening.
Okay.
And maybe there's a feasibility level where if we can have the pave cut inspector, if he's the head of this, he gets all the information from the utilities, and maybe there's a way that he can get that to our IT department, and maybe even as crude as a scan, like a PDF file put on what's being worked on and where.
great.
And at Councilman Wexler's point, all those dates, they're kind of floating dates on weather-related and things, but at least we have an idea. I know I went through similar what you went through last year in my neighborhood, where Collier Avenue was the same way, and it wasn't going to get finished until spring. But there was a good amount of time where, myself and some of the other neighbors, we weren't really sure the time frames. So I think if we had an idea of the time frames, it would put us at ease a little bit more. And the road closures are tough, but unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it until they're done, and eventually we'll have some nice paved roads, but it gets frustrating, especially when you're kind of in the dark and things.
Right.
I agree.
If I could have just one more second about what's out on that website, what I did read was about the stormwater and asking people about the leaves and telling them the effects of the leaves and not letting them go down into the drains. That was quite interesting reading, too, if anyone wants to go out there and read that. That was interesting. That's it for me.
Joan Hodawanitz?
Joan Hodawanitz, Scranton resident and taxpayer. I have to agree with Norma. That would be very useful information to be put on the city's website. And for those who don't have access to the internet and can't access the website, perhaps something could be worked out between the city to feed a weekly report to the Times-Tribune so that they can publish that, maybe in the classifieds. But that's information that people need to know. I mean, they're trying to get to work, they're trying to get to school. It doesn't do them any good to be running around in circles. Okay. Speaking of the winter, you only have one more session before the holidays. Are we to assume that the arrangements you made last year with reference to parking during snowstorms will again apply this year?
Yes. With the
So
parking,
that
yes.
a weather emergency be declared by the mayor and people can park in the parking garages?
Yes.
You might want to make sure that that gets republicized, either on the website or in the newspaper or something, so that people know, and for people who aren't familiar with it from last year. Where is the Knowles insurance list? Don't all answer at once. Okay, somebody's going on Santa's naughty list. They're going to find out who should have gotten that thing done. I know that they got a 3-year contract back at the end of March. I'm hoping I don't have to wait 3 years to see the new list. And also, I was in the caucus and heard the comments about the Arcadis study. I think it would be useful also if you could give the public a general idea of when that thing is going to wind up and the information be made available. As I recall, when you passed this, passed the contract for Arcadis, we were talking an October, November timeframe for completion. You were hoping to have it done before the end of the year. And it's understandable you might not make that target, but it'd be nice, having passed that target date, if we could get an update on a projected completion date. Because I, like many people, would like to know if this is going to impact homeowners and others financially. I would rather know sooner rather than later. Like many people.
I can tell you this, the study release is not imminent.
I know it's not going to have that kind of information,
No,
but.
I mean, the report is not imminent in being released.
So it's a it's right behind the Knowles insurance list.
I won't be here for it, I can tell you that.
I know you won't, but it's behind the insurance list, okay, that's
No,
fine.
it's ahead of the insurance list, but it's not imminent.
Yeah.
so.
The other thing that would be nice to get updates on is how we're standing on transferring the proceeds of the sewer sale into the pension plans. I know it's going to be done incrementally, and you've got the trust set up. Many people do not go to the pension board meetings, which are held monthly, and they're not televised. And there's a time lag before the minutes are publicly released. So whoever can kind of keep, maybe the financial chair, if you could keep kind of an eye on that and say, okay, of the 22 million, 2 million's gone in, the next 2 million's gone in, whatever. So we have a sensing, because, the market's hot, and, you want to get that 12% rate of return before the market crashes, which sooner or later, it's going to have to go down. Thank you.
Bob Bolus?
Evening, Council. Bob Bolus. And regarding the Scranton tomorrow, I think before we hand anybody $250,000, I think we need to know exactly, through a pro forma, what plan do they have, how are they going to market the city, at what cost for advertising, et cetera, and how much are we going to be paying in wages for their people to do this job? Like, what are they allocating? Like, they should have a separate pro forma set up, just like a balance sheet. We're going to give you $250,000. What are you going to give us in return? Rhetoric? We got enough of that around here. How are you going to plan to bring in people to the city? How are you going to address businesses coming in here with the issues with the school board? And how are we going to handle this issue or that issue? And I don't see that in here anywhere along the line, exactly what we're paying for. It's like just handing somebody a basket of money and say, here, have fun. And we have no idea of accountability or what they're doing for it. So I think that should be tabled till we have a much better understanding and a plan laid out as to how much wage we're going to pay them out of $250,000 to do whatever they're going to do. And I would ask council tonight, table that until they come before us here and lay out a comprehensive plan that makes sense to us, not just some rhetoric, sending some newspaper ads, some flyers out, and blow $250,000. So I think we need to go that route first. Let's do it intelligently and spend our money wisely. You wouldn't go buy a car not knowing anything about it, and you sure in heck wouldn't go into a grocery store and pick up a bag of groceries or something out of there without first understanding what it was and what you were paying for. And that's the same issue I have here. If we're going to move the city forward, let's move it forward intelligently. And I'm not taking anything from Scranton tomorrow or anything on it, but I want to hear what the heck you're going to do for us. And that's what we're paying you for. So let's see if we could table that tonight and have a public forum here. Let them explain to us. Let's get some accountability. As Mr. Gahan would say, he wants transparency. His black skunk is here tonight, and he's not even here tonight. Breaking my heart.
Yeah,
But,
Mr. Gahan, did you hear me, Mr. Bolus? He had emergency surgery.
Pardon?
He had emergency surgery. That's why he's not here this evening.
Geez, he could have called me. We could have did that for him. I wish him well, I really do. And it does get some fun in here, and sometimes you got to have some humor in here. Sometimes it gets intense. But I think at the end of the day, we could all walk outside, shake hands, and say we did a good job or a bad job. And That's what makes this the right place to be, with the camaraderie with everybody. We all have opinions, good, bad, or indifferent. What I like to do is, on the parking garage here, which has been a pet peeve, we paid $4.some million or something to Basiliga. I want to know where our parking spaces are, and I'm sure in heck they're not going to be on the upstairs, outside in the snow, on the upper garage. We paid for parking spaces. They should be premium parking spaces allocated to the people of this city that just paid for them. And Basiliga has to be held accountable now. I'm tired of hearing about them. I'm tired of hearing about this, hearing about that at our expense. And I'm not going to drive over here, go through a gate and get a ticket to pay to park in a space we already paid for. I want to know where my parking space is, or anybody else's. So I think we need to have him be held accountable on the parking. Enough's enough. Think back when I talked about doing a casino here in Scranton when I wanted to buy the mall, which we were going to buy, but we couldn't get any support to ask the gaming board to at least consider an additional license for the city of Scranton. Look what's happened. It was like we looked into a crystal ball and they put out a license. Think how Scranton would have grown over what the mall is or whatever it is. We could have made this into one of the greatest financially stable places in the United States with everything we had to offer people coming here to come to a casino in downtown Scranton. And it's just disappointing that we couldn't get the cooperation to have anybody send a letter out to do it. I've been working with the county on PTSD. It's a major issue. I had a clinical psychologist up here from Florida that I brought up that addressed them for over 2 hours. And I think we're moving forward, that our citizens in this community in a very short period of time are going to start seeing results of a PTSD study to help people here. And last, and I don't want to take any more time, I want to congratulate naturally the mayor for his victory, but more importantly, I had the honor of addressing and representing the city of Scranton and Lackawanna County in Baltimore a couple weeks ago at the American Tollman Association convention, where I presented on behalf of the city the key to the city. And Wayne, you were there. The honor was that at the captains of industry table that addressed the Spirit Ride, that I was able to address them and present this. Scranton was, out of 147 cities, the only city to present the key to the city to the Spirit Ride. And the Spirit Ride, so people understand, is related to the move over law for first responders. And they were taken aback that Scranton was the only place that did it. And now they're pushing every mayor in every city that the Spirit Ride goes through to follow the example of Scranton, Pennsylvania, Lackawanna County. And we did set another milestone for somebody else to follow us. And that's what I got. And my dinner will be...
I was going to say, if you wanted to make your announcement for public dinner, Mr. Bullis.
My dinner will be on Christmas Day. This will be the 24th year I'm doing it. The dinner's open to everyone and anyone who doesn't want to be home alone on Christmas. We do offer rides. We will be delivering 2 meals to a family, and takeouts will now only be available to those that attend the dinner. So bring your family, leave the cooking to us, and enjoy the festivities and see what Scranton Spirit's really about. And I hope I get back next week to do it. If not, I'm going to delegate Mr. Rogan to bring it up again next week if I can't make it back because of the time frame. And if I can, gentlemen, Merry Christmas.
Same to you. Thank you, Mr. Bullis.
Merry Christmas.
Mr. Bowles, what's the time?
And location as well.
You could get there at 5 in the morning and start taking the turkeys out of the oven.
You don't want me cooking.
We start serving from noon till 6 o'clock. And we will deliver meals, like I said, 2 meals to a family. We hope our elderly people that are in need call us. My phone number, I'm sorry, is 570-346-7659. Thank you.
I don't think you mentioned the location.
Pardon?
Location?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's at St. Pat's at
Okay, that's
All
what I-
Saints
that's what I
Academy in the
thought,
back
yeah.
at the cafeteria.
Okay. All right,
Hey,
very
thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Dobson?
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident. Finally, a local issue. It must be 5 years in a row. Every time leaves come up, we pick the paper week. We always pick the paper week. Please, remember next year, I can leave the cans out under the lilac bush or hide them under the evergreen, but I can't store papers without a lot of grief. They're either sitting on my back porch, they can even get wet there. And if we have any type of weather before December 15th and our recycle crew gets snagged for downtown snow removal or something, then they're sitting there through Christmas and New Year's. So with my luck, we'll have snow before Martin Luther King Day. That'll really do it. So please, try and coordinate that bottles and cans, you can put them in a white bag, the light bottles, and mark it with a magic marker. Please recycle, and they take them for me, you know. So even if I have extra, because I usually have at least 3 barrels a month, probably closer to 4 if it's a longer month. The 500 block of at the corner right by Buona Pizza came up. I read in the paper, and you know, the thought always occurred to me, if that were paved and a couple meters were put in there, it'd be a great parking area for people that wanted to shop or visit with Buona Pizza or whatever. And something should be done with it, but we really need to get something done with it and not just hand it over to somebody for a couple of bucks. And in reality, one of the things that started my consternation with the last mayor was the way Buona Pizza was treated. They just, they were put under eminent domain, and it really hurt them. And they spent more on that lot, the city did, than what they offered Buona Pizza for a business that was 40 years old and paid taxes. I remember when my wife and I were teenagers, we used to go to the movies and stop over Buona Pizzas on Saturday or Sunday night. So, you know, it's really, something could be done with the lot. I don't think we need any more business properties or storefronts on that block. We already have quite a few that aren't filled, so maybe we should see if the parking authority wants to do something, or if Buona wants to buy it, sell it to them and let them run a parking lot, whatever. But it's unsightly. The sidewalks are never clean. I almost went head over heels with my pizza a couple times walking out of there during the winter, and something should be done with it. On signage, if possible, we should explore decals, that we could just have somebody up on a ladder, slap a decal on a faded sign, and for city streets and stuff, and at least explore it, whether it would be cheaper. And once again, on pilots, please, you know, we'll try not to be too insulting, but you know, they really need to get together. If they don't want to provide pilots the tax exempts, then start petitioning the state to do something to replace some of this missing property tax, because it gets a little, it's a little much at $3,500. And by the way, on Hemlock across from Scranton Grinder, there must be 20 bags of leaves standing there. So is there another leaf day by any chance?
No, they'll have to get picked up with the trash.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like 20 bags, and even worse yet, it's in the Lowe's biodegradable leaf bags, you know. Shame. Have a good night. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thanks, I appreciate that. Good evening, Marie Schumacher. I would like to start off tonight by asking people to vote for the PA, Lackawanna for the PA River of the Year. It was covered in the paper, so I'm hoping that that boosts the voting, because the last I checked, which I believe was last night, we were still in single digit as a percent of the vote, and other places were in the 30s. So, I mean, I think the people who've been working that river have really done a fantastic job from when I was a kid, certainly, and at least it's fishable now. I wouldn't want to eat one out of there, but it's fishable, and hopefully someday it'll be swimmable. But we need to, if not for any other reason, but to thank the people and give some light, shed some light on the people who actually work so very hard to accomplish that. Has anybody seen the settlement agreement for the Wyoming Avenue and Linden property?
No, we would not see that. That's with the city solicitor.
Well, you could ask for it. You wouldn't vote on something certainly before you knew if that was the total.
It's a lawsuit. It's a lawsuit. We don't vote on lawsuits.
But the settlement agreement wouldn't be provided to at least 48 hours outside of the closing. You're talking about the settlement?
Well, I mean, I don't think you should vote on it until we can see something. If that suffices, just buying that property. But I have a real issue with that, because they paid a lot more money than what we are paying for that property. Plus, I don't know where we stand with respect to the remediation that was spoken of last week, how we compete for that. And again, I think we have plenty of parks downtown, but I want to move on. Mr. Wexler, are you going to give us a rundown on the parking meeting that was held on Monday?
They are going to provide a summary of the meeting, and that will be presented to prior to the parking authority meeting for public comment. So I am not, the information that was discussed at that meeting is classified because it is a private company. So I am not at liberty to discuss it.
When is the next parking authority meeting?
I don't know. That I don't know.
Who does?
I don't know.
I'm not sure when they meet.
Pardon?
No, I'm not sure when
Is
they
the
meet,
office equipped to find out when that is held?
Sure. Yeah, we can find that out. I'm sure they meet at the same time each month.
Pardon?
I'm sure we can find that out, yeah.
Thank you. Also, what is the policy with respect to the deployment of the vacuum truck?
The vacuum truck is deployed when it works. It doesn't always work.
You know, something needs to be done a whole lot better. This was 2 weeks. I mean, I thought I was going to have a heart attack dragging I put everything out this morning because I wasn't really sure what they were doing, and then dragging the papers back. But, I mean, I don't think it's really fair that some people have to bag them, go over and get the bags and come back and bag them, and other people just put it in the street and let it sit there until somebody comes, and maybe they don't even come. And
that's the risk you run. Everyone was told to put their leaves in the bags.
I know that, but they went 2 weeks, right, as well, on just leaves. They didn't do any recyclables for 2 weeks.
They took last week off of papers to collect the leaves.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, on to the next. There were new positions in the in the budget that you all approve for next year. Are those new positions going to be advertised?
I would hope so. I mean, some might be internal because there might be some movement within City Hall, people that are in similar jobs. But I would imagine they should all be advertised.
Like what, has anybody been named to any of the positions
Not
yet
that I'm
other
aware
than the
of,
VA?
No. Well, the BA, obviously, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think it would be nice if they were advertised for a change. On this money, 6 tonight, 6C, I have a problem with it. I read through that, and I'm not sure if this is a project for the city of Scranton, or if it's for, may I just finish the thought, because I won't go into all the details, but many of them have, and the rationale when it gives the topic, and then it says summary and then rationale, and I'll just read this one because there's more than one that reads like this. Viable activity demonstrating the effectiveness and capacity of Scranton tomorrow. And you read through them, and it sounds as though the goal of this is to promote Scranton tomorrow as a viable organization rather than what it's going to do for the city, but more on that next week. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. Perry?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wexler. I just have a couple items tonight. The first item, I received a phone call. If we can have Mr. Santoli stop and pay a visit on Maple Ave, I believe the address is close to 538. There's a tree that looks like it's damaged, it's about to fall down, and the residents there are worried that the first snowstorm might topple that over on some power lines or some property. And second, and I don't know if this is possible, so let's put the wheels in motion. Maybe if we can send something over to Mr. Hazori to see if it's possible, once he gets the information from UGI and American Water, if he can just email a PDF file to IT, and then maybe IT can scan that to our website, and then that at least we'll have something, some kind of information out there for the residents to know what street's being worked on and what the actual plan is. Granted, plans do change, and we understand that, but if we have something there, that's at least a start, and see if there's any feasibility in that. And finally, it'd be awful for me not to mention the date of December 7th today. Every meeting we start off with thanking the servicemen and women of this country, and that's the right thing to do. But on some of these, whether it's Veterans Day, Memorial Day, or December 7th, it just makes you think about that a little bit more. We all have military people in our life, whether it's a friend, a family, a father, a grandfather, and some of them gave the ultimate sacrifice. And I just want to take the next 10 seconds just to thank all active and retired military personnel that fight for our great country and their families. Let's not forget about the families that are left behind that are the backbone of our military, and they really put up a strong fight, sometimes just as strong as the people that get sent overseas. So I just want to thank for that blanket of freedom that they give all of us, that we get to live in every day, and their bravery and sacrifice, it never goes unnoticed. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Rogan?
Yes, just a couple brief items. We did discuss this a little bit in our caucus. City Council, our Attorney Menor, has received the double pension scandal report from the state police. So council members will be asked there's going to be some documentation we have to sign before reviewing it, but we do have that report, and it's something I'm very anxious to read. And over the couple weeks in between the end of this session and swearing in next year, I'll be thoroughly examining that report. Again, we will be bound by certain legal restrictions on what we could say. For instance, if there was, say, a member of the pension board who was interviewed by the state police multiple times, we couldn't mention that person's name. We couldn't mention anything within that report, naming names, anything of that nature, but what we can do is use that information to try to put reforms in place that will prevent this from happening again. We haven't seen, as I mentioned, we haven't seen it yet. I have my suspicions on how this transpired, who the people who have committed possibly crimes that unfortunately because of statute of limitations they can't be addressed as crimes, but it's our obligation to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So reviewing those reports is something I'll be working on diligently over over the next month or so. Mr. Bullis brought up an item tonight that is something that's been reported widely in the papers regarding casinos and the mini casino licenses within the state of Pennsylvania. I know there are some smaller towns that's been reported that have opposed these type of casinos. I think something like this would be great for the city. Drive down to Wilkes-Barre and see the economic development in and around Mohegan Sun. Not only for gaming, which people enjoy, but the restaurants, the jobs. So if there was ever an opportunity for either Mount Airy or Mohegan Sun to open a satellite casino in the city of Scranton, it's something I would fully support. I know the mall has been always brought up as a site for that, and really one floor of Boscov's is big enough for one of these mini casinos, because it's not going to be anything on the scale of what you see at Mount Airy or at Mohegan Sun. But I think it would be an economic engine for the city of Scranton. So that's something I would support if that was able to happen here in the city. And finally, I would like to thank Mr. Bullis for, again, hosting his Christmas dinner, the dinner that Mr. Bullis holds at Christmas time, and I know Mr. Piccolino does one every year for Thanksgiving. It's really what Scranton's all about. So I want to thank him for doing that for the community for 24 years. And again, as he mentioned, anyone who doesn't have anyone to be with on Christmas, go over to St. Pat's and West Side between 12 and 6 o'clock, and all are welcome. So I just want to thank him. I'll address agenda items, the DPW contract, and some other items as they come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogan. Mr. Evans?
Thank you. I'm going to briefly talk about one of the agenda items tonight, 7A, which is a modest reduction in the real estate transfer tax. I think over the years we've all seen the negative impact of raising taxes. So over the decades, we've sort of pushed ourselves well beyond the point of diminishing returns with any attempt to raise taxes or fees in the city. So when an opportunity to achieve a second modest reduction in the real estate transfer tax becomes more than a reduction in a nuisance tax, in many ways it is a shift in philosophy, one that I've espoused on City Council since I've been sitting in this seat. So while revenue projections for the real estate transfer tax at the end of the third quarter may be running slightly behind expectations, that is true for almost every tax and fee in that same time frame, so it's not unusual. But I still feel the opportunity to reduce this tax and achieve equal or more revenue is still very achievable, but a one-year sampling certainly is not enough to prove or disprove that theory. But more than that, I think we're trying to send a message that in the simplest terms, Scranton is finally trying to be homeowner-friendly, that we want to be once again a city of homeowners, and that we are working towards that goal by reducing impediments wherever we can. We want to be known that we are trying to grow the real estate market, that we cannot continue with the failed policies of the past that have stunned the growth for more than a generation. And yes, we need to do more, find ways to even incentivize this sector anywhere we can. Because a city with a higher percentage of homeowners is a stable city, a cleaner city, a safer city. And there are positive signs in the real estate market that is happening. According to a report developed by the Greater Scranton Board of Realtors, in the city of Scranton over the last 12 months, ending with the third quarter 2017, new listings are down 8.7%. That's a good thing because it's an indication of a stronger market and begins to signal a shift from a buyer's market to a seller's market. And that should bring about an increase in home prices, something we haven't seen in Scranton in quite a while. Also, there are other signs that the real estate market in Scranton is improving. Pending sales are up 26%, and closed sales are up 28.1% in that same time frame. So I'm very encouraged by those numbers and the trends that they indicate. So I will continue to support this legislation and any opportunity we may have in the future to reduce or eliminate any tax or any fee that would help grow the city. So that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. I'd like to congratulate the officials from Lackawanna County and the people who ran the marketplace at the Globe Store over the weekend. It was a great success. I know my wife took some of my money down there to visit. it worked quite well, and I congratulate all those people again. And I'd also like to wish the marketplace at Steamtown Mall on their prepared opening, and hopefully they'll have the same success as the organizers of the other event. The other night I had the pleasure, and I'd like to thank James May from PennDOT and also DPW Director Gallagher, Dennis Gallagher. They contacted me to arrange to have veterans from the Southside VFW be the last people to drive across the Harrison Avenue Bridge. These men have given their time for the past 75 years in maintaining the Duffy statue and Duffy Park, and I think it was a great honor for them to be able to be the last ones to cross the bridge. And on Friday morning at 9 a.m., the city actually will take possession of the Harrison Avenue Bridge. There'll be a ribbon cutting at 9 a.m. And then as the weather turns better, the bridge will have some final touches placed on it, and the completion of Duffy Park will be probably towards the end of 2018. So it's nice to see that project is getting completed. Just to follow up on Councilman Rogan's comments about the casinos, the city has decided not to opt out. It would have had to say that it did not want to participate in the small casinos program. So the city has not elected to opt out. So that will be a possibility in the future for the city of a small casino. Personally, myself, I would welcome a casino if it did not affect the current businesses and restaurants in the city. My big concern about this would be people would stay in the casino and not come out to our bars and restaurants. So I would support it if it was an add to our current businesses and did not take away from that. That's all I have.
5B, no business at this time. Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file of the council number 134, 2017, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to approve the transfer of $2 million from account number as noted FNCB Bank Sewer Clearing Account to account number as noted PNC Bank General Fund Account for the necessary capital budget funding for 2018.
You have heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, so moved.
6B, reading by title, file of the council number 135, 2017, an ordinance approving the transfer of a restaurant liquor license owned by CBTB LLC, doing business as Corner Bistro, currently in safekeeping with the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, formerly used at 7678 South Main Street, Carbondale, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, 18407, for use at 429 North Main Avenue, Scranton, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, 18504, as required by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board.
You've heard reading by title of item 6B. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6B pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so moved.
6C, reading by title, file of the council number 136, 2017, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to allocate $250,000 from economic development funds on a matching basis to Scranton tomorrow to further the prospects of economic revitalization in the downtown section of the city of Scranton.
You've heard reading by title of item 6C. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6C pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so moved.
6D, reading by title, file of the council number 137, 2017, an ordinance establishing a no parking zone along the northerly side of Greenridge Street, beginning approximately 150 feet west from its intersection with Penn Avenue and continuing 80 feet to allow for sight distance for a proposed driveway by Mr. George Jenkins for a property located at 921 Greenridge Street.
You've heard reading by title of item 6D. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6D pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so moved.
6E, reading by title, file of the council number 138, 2017, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a pension trust agreement with the Composite Pension Board to hold approximately $22,910,531.56 of the proceeds from the sale of the assets of the Scranton Sewer Authority in trust until such time as pension reforms have been enacted.
You've heard reading by title of item 6E. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6E pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for Adoption, file of the Council Number 128, 2017, amending file of the Council Number 6, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended imposing a tax for general revenue purposes on the transfer of real property situate within the City of Scranton, prescribing and regulating the method of evidencing the payment of such tax, conferring powers and imposing duties upon certain persons, and providing penalties by imposing the rate of the realty transfer tax at 2 2/10% for calendar year 2018, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, I'd just like to echo the comments that Councilman Evans mentioned earlier, and this is something that council really has been pushing hard for, is the further reductions in the realty transfer tax. I'd love to see the day when this tax is completely eliminated. We have a long way to go to get there, but this reduction, again, is going to help homeowners in the city who are looking at selling their homes, and more importantly, it's going to help prospective buyers who are going to move into the city for the first time to help grow our tax base. So glad that 2 years in a row we're able to cut the realty transfer tax, hold the line on property taxes, so we have things moving in the right direction.
Yes, on the question, as modest of a decrease as this might seem, not only does it add up for potential property owners in the city, but what it does, I think personally, it sets a new goal and a new standard in the city. Whenever we want to roll back a tax, because we all believe, taxes are too high and we pay an awful lot. I don't mind paying taxes for a service, but we always figure we can manage it a little bit better. But the very first thing you're going to hear is that, well, if you repeal a tax and you bring it down, well, that money, that revenue has to be replaced somewhere. And we always state that, well, the tax will pay for itself with the bigger pie. We'll get more revenue based on people paying less because more people want to move into the city. And I think that this, on a small scale, proves that point to us, because this is not the first time we've reduced this tax. This is the second year in a row we've been able to reduce this tax. So I'm hoping that this cascades into other areas of city finance where we can actually someday take a look and start turning back some of these taxes. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for Adoption, file of the Council Number 129, 2017, amending file of the Council Number 7, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended imposing a mercantile license tax of 2 mills for the year 1976 and annually thereafter upon persons engaging in certain occupations and businesses therein, providing for its levy and collection and for the issuance of mercantile licenses, conferring and imposing powers and duties upon the tax collector of the City of Scranton, and imposing penalties by imposing the mercantile license tax at 1 mill for calendar year 2018, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, I'm hopeful, very hopeful, that the mercantile tax and the business privilege tax, which is coming on 7C, will finally be eliminated in 2019 and replaced by a payroll tax. These two taxes are small business job killers, and we have to find a way to move away from these. So hopefully this will be the last year we'll ever have to authorize this rate again.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for Adoption, file of the Council Number 130, 2017, amending file of the Council Number 8, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended, providing for the general revenue by imposing a tax at the rate of 2 mills upon the privilege of operating or conducting business in the City of Scranton, as measured by the gross receipts therefrom, requiring registration and payment of the tax as condition to the conducting of such business, providing for the levy and collection of such tax, prescribing such requirements for returns and records, conferring powers and duties upon the tax collector, and imposing penalties by imposing the business privilege tax at the rate of 1 mil for calendar year 2018, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, file of the Council Number 131, 2017, amending file of the Council Number 11, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended enacting imposing a tax for general revenue purposes in the amount of 2% on earned income and net profits on persons, individuals, associations, and businesses who are residents of the City of Scranton or non-residents of the City of Scranton for work done, services performed, or business conducted within the City of Scranton, requiring the filing of returns by taxpayers subject to the tax, requiring employers to collect the tax at source, providing for the administration, collection, and enforcement of the said tax, and imposing penalties for the violations by reenacting the imposition of the wage tax at 2 4/10% on earned income for residents and 1% on earned income for non-residents of the City of Scranton for work done, services performed, or business conducted within the City of Scranton for the year 2018, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, file of the Council Number 132, 2017, amending file of the Council Number 78, 2017, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 100, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended levying general and special taxes for the fiscal year 1977 by setting the millage for the year 2018, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter by amending Section 1, reverting back to the millage rates from 2016, which are .232521 mills levy on land and .050564 levy on all buildings, and by eliminating the dedicated millage for debt service contained in Section 2 and replacing the dedicated millage for debt service with the dedicated debt percentage of 32% of real estate tax revenues collected on a current year basis.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted.
7F for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, file of the Council Number 133, 2017, creating and establishing special city account number as noted, entitled Street Paving, for the receipt and distribution of funds from the defeasance of the 2012 Series A and B bonds with sewer sale proceeds and distribution of the funds for paving streets throughout the City of Scranton.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7F.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7F legally and lawfully adopted.
7G for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, resolution number 211, 2017, accepting the recommendation of the Historical Architecture Review Board and approving the certificate of appropriateness for Locker General Construction, P.O. Box 206, Oliphant, PA 18447, to install a digital billboard which roughly measures 8 feet high by 23 feet wide between the second and third floors, and a painted sign above the digital billboard comparable to Bit and Bender signage situated at 134 Franklin Avenue, Scranton, PA 18503.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As Chair for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7G.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7G legally and lawfully adopted.
7H for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 212, 2017, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a master lease agreement between the City of Scranton, hereinafter designated lessor, and New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, a Delaware limited liability company with its principal offices at 575 Morosco Drive, Atlanta, Georgia, 30324, hereinafter designated lessee, to lease space to lessee with respect to particular sites at which lessee wishes to install, maintain, and operate small cell communications equipment, as well as any and all necessary lease supplements outlined herein.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7H.
Second.
On the question,
Yes, I just have one item on the question here. This is going to generate some revenue for us. What I would like to get with the business administrator and maybe set up a special account where we can use some of the funds from this to help pay for our street sign project. I know that's something that's been talked about a lot lately, and it's always a question of, well, where's the money going to come from? I know the administration talked about performing a study, but the study based on cost. Well, maybe we can just bypass that if this money already hasn't been allocated for some other use. So that's something I would like to get with the new business administrator with and see if we can set something up for 2018.
Yeah, on the question, I would certainly support that because I think that's a great idea. And what's nice about this is a annual fee that we're going to be getting. So it's something we can work on annually to constantly update our street signs. So that would be a great idea.
roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7H legally and lawfully adopted.
7I for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 213, 2017, appointment of Christy A. Cashano Sr., 301 Norton Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18504, as Business Administrator effective November 20, 2017. Mr. Cashano will be replacing David Bolzoni, who resigned as Business Administrator.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7I.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7I legally and lawfully adopted.
7J for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 214, 2017, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a collective bargaining agreement with Local Lodge 2305 of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers in accordance with the terms and provisions of a memorandum of understanding ratified by the membership.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7J.
Second.
On the question,
Yes, on the question, this item is the Department of Public Works contract. I don't think there's been a councilman in recent city history that's been more critical of the DPW at times than I have. So I spent a long time reviewing this contract, and although there are some provisions in there that I wish weren't, and there are some other things that I'm not 100% happy with, overall, this is a very fair contract. Again, its minimal pay increase is 2% for our DPW workers. Most importantly in this contract, which I think is a must for all future contracts in the city, is random drug testing for DPW employees. This has already been put into place within our fire department, and it's been very successful. And we, in our caucus tonight, discussed that a little bit more about how the drug testing would be run, and it would be completely done at random. But it's very important, especially with having employees driving heavy equipment throughout the city, that we are sure that our workforce isn't using drugs, and it's something that needs to be applied to every department in the city, not only DPW. So that's something that was put into this contract that is new, that is a big change. So that's something I certainly support. And the other reason why I'm going to support this legislation is over the last 4 years, the DPW, in my opinion, has improved quite a bit. One of my biggest gripes in the past with Public Works, and it's still a problem sometimes, but it has improved quite a bit, is when residents contact myself or my colleagues with problems, that when we send them to the director or many times an employee, that they get done. And in the past, that wasn't the case. So there are some members of the DPW I do want to thank by name, and I know there's a number of others that work hard every day, but Danny Gallagher, the director, has helped me with numerous citizens' requests through the course of the year. The person who's probably helped me the most is Larry Wynn. I've mentioned him. I've thanked him a number of times at these meetings, so I wanted to thank him. Gene Reed, who's technically not a DPW employee. I believe he falls under a different union, but he works at DPW. Bill Slocum, and of course Tim Gilroy, guys who have helped out with citizens' requests that I had. So I want to take a chance to thank all of them for their hard work for our city, and I will be voting yes on this contract.
On the question, the city solicitor met with us in caucus prior to our meeting tonight, and we had several questions. One was related to what impact would the contract have on stormwater management if the city decided to retain management as part of the DPW, or if the storm authority was created by the city, or if a stormwater authority was created in a more regional approach. Also, we had concerns, I had concerns about the garbage study being done, and if we decided to go with a per bag or a hybrid system, would there be any restrictions? So we were assured by the city solicitor that there are no restrictions in the contract for any of those issues. So that is one of the main reasons I'll be voting in the affirmative as well.
Yes, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the administration and the union leadership at DPW. I believe this contract was negotiated fairly, give and take on both sides, and I do think it resulted in a fair contract to both the workers and to the taxpayers. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7J legally and lawfully adopted.
7K for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 215, 2017, as amended, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield to provide medical claims administrative services to the city of Scranton for the period January 1, 2018 through December 31, 2020.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7K as amended.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7K as amended legally and lawfully adopted.
7L, previously tabled, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, file of the Council Number 120, 2017, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute the deed conveying title from RSM Properties, LLC, the property located at 248, 256 Wyoming Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, to the city of Scranton as more fully described in Exhibit A, attached hereto, and made a part hereof.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7L.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, I'm sorry, on the question. We tabled this, and I'm not against having a park, but what I'm for is having as many properties that we have on the city tax rolls, for obvious reasons. So I know that's something in many caucuses that we had while we had this, we kicked this idea around, and the bottom line is this property's been for sale and on the market for over 10 years, and to say that the market for this property was cold would be an understatement. So there was no way to move this property. If we could have, it would have been sold and it would have been already on the tax rolls. So now we're left with the options of what are we going to do with it. Now, there was another question of purchasing it first, but we have to have title of it to apply for the grants. That's the understanding, and that was the explanation that we have for our grants. County grants have to come together. We cannot apply for them until we own it. So I'm going to be for this project. I think the green space will be beautiful, but I would have rather have a business on that property, but it just wasn't going to happen. And this is a good plan B.
This is a piece of legislation I struggled with quite a bit because as Councilman Perry mentioned, I want to see this developed privately. I do not want to see a park put in this location. On the other side is the background on this piece of property is that this was a large mistake by the Doherty administration where they agreed to remediate this land. Because of that, it resulted in a lawsuit. From talking to the city solicitor, and I want to thank the city solicitor for informing council every step of the way on this, the unfortunate truth on this is that it would cost more to fight this out in court and to go down that path than to settle the suit by this piece of legislation. I will be voting yes for the legislation for that reason and that reason only. I would like the city to try to market the property in the meantime, to try to find a suitable developer that would be interested in the property, even if it means selling it at a loss to get it and keep it on the tax rolls and have that developed. So that is something that I will be discussing with the mayor and his administration. But unfortunately, at this time, there really is only one decision, and it is to pass this legislation to settle that lawsuit. Again, for those who don't know, Mayor Doherty did agree in writing to remediate this property, and the city did not fulfill their duty. That's why there's a lawsuit over this piece of land, and that's why we are where we are. I know there is a good amount of support for putting a park there. Again, I don't know if I'm sold on that idea. I would like to see it developed, but the lawsuit does need to be settled. And it's been my long-standing position with many of these items that when it comes to lawsuits, the city never comes out on the right side of them. So getting this settled, I think, is the best course of action for the taxpayers. And then I do want to strongly urge the mayor and the administration to consider using this piece of land as an economic development tool to try to lure a business into the city. Like I said, even if it means selling this at a loss.
On the question, I'm probably going to repeat some of the things my colleagues have said already, but the conditions that led to the city's offer to purchase this land basically are as follows. We have A, a pending lawsuit by the current owners. B, we have a property that has been consistently exposed to the real estate market on and off for maybe 8 to 10 years with no takers. C, the lack of reassessment makes it extremely difficult to develop commercial parcels and build new commercial construction in the city. So my position is pretty simple. Certainly I would prefer this property to be developed as a mixed-use commercial project, as was stated by my colleagues, but that would always be number one in my eyes. But the reality is the current climate does not allow for that, and the market has spoken. After 1,782 days actually on the market and a purchase price that is 35% less than the purchase price that was paid by the owners, it's time to make a deal. Because of all that, I feel the alternative for this land to be used as a pocket park downtown while partnering with Scranton on its development is a sound solution to a very unique situation. So I will be supporting this legislation to purchase this parcel of land at Linden and Wyoming.
Yes, I'll also be voting for this legislation. Just to kind of recap what was said, in order for the county to do any remediation at that site, the property does have to be in the hands of the city or a nonprofit. Once the city takes possession of that land, it also opens up opportunities for more grants from the state to also develop that area. And I also think, as Councilman Rogan mentioned, this is going to be an opportunity actually for the city and the county to begin discussing what we're going to do with the empty spaces in our current commercial buildings when the county moves into the Globe store. As everyone is quite aware, there are several offices in the county that take up a lot of office space in buildings throughout the city. And I think, although a new office building there may have been a good idea at one time, we are going to have to come up with some type of idea to start marketing the empty offices that are going to be left behind when the county moves. I know some of them are going to become apartments and maybe some retail space, but we are going to have to concentrate between the city, Scranton tomorrow, Lackawanna County, and the state to come up with a way to start filling some of our empty spaces that are going to be opening up as we move into next year. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7L legally and lawfully adopted. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
This meeting is adjourned.